This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains mentions from Shang from Blood and Ash series, The Black Witch Chronicles, and Empire of Storms. There's also discussion surrounding grief.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Book 1 in the Sands of Aralia, the wonderful book, We Hunt the Flame. And I have to say, I love this ending. I love anything that has, like, hearts in boxes. I just love that.
There's a lot. I want to say there's foreshadowing, and obviously it's set up that way because we know, and maybe it helps that we know that there's a second book. But when you have, when you read that first book, like when we did for Legendborn, the way it's set up, you're just like, this is set up for a second book. We need the second book. So the way this ends, imagine everybody who is just like at the edge of their seat, like waiting and frothing out the mouth for the next part. And that's what the epilogue is in a lot of different ways.
It's just so good to know that, yes, like we as like you and I, a podcast, get to read a second book. We get to like find out like what happens, but also like we as a general audience get to experience this as a TV show, like as a fandom and a community. And that will be very interesting too. So lots of things to say, lots of very like exciting things going on in the community. And I don't know, let's just like kind of get into it. I really love Zafira. I have a love for her. I relate to strong female characters that have a male best friend in love with them, and then them proposing, oh, really? and then them proposing, and then you being like, shit, well, what do I do now? Not saying that has happened to me.
No, not at all.
That's never happened to me more than once, because that would be weird. But I related to that on a very like deep level. So I have to say, Zafira's my girl. I really appreciated her and her whole journey about like embracing herself. I really dug that.
I like how, I mean, right off the bat, something. And this isn't spoiling, and plus it's the episode, but right when you're reading the synopsis of the cover, you know that she is a woman who is a hunter who is masking as a man, basically because men can't believe that a woman could ever get this stuff done. And if they did, everything that she has been fighting for her people and helping her community survive, she feels like it would be brushed aside and she'd be damned, basically. And it gave me very Mulan vibes, how Mulan had to do what was best for the people. And I think this is an ongoing conversation that we always have in the books, is having a respect for the female main characters who understand the importance of the bigger picture. And sometimes, it's like there's a lot of self-sacrificing in a way, but they understand that it's not just about them.
Yeah, it's not just about them. There's a huge picture. And, I love world building, obviously. You know that I love reading world building. And, like, there is very heavy world building in this book, which is fine because it's a really interesting world. And I have to say that just like in our Serpent and Dove episodes, I am not a huge fan of our found family wandering around in the forest, or in this case on an island for a majority of the book where very little happens. But I appreciate the bonding, I guess, that's going on. And I absolutely, without a doubt, no question, appreciated the many twists at the like middle and tail end of this book. I did not see any of that shit coming.
No, I didn't either. In regards to the quote unquote found family trope, I never took it as they were a found family. It just didn't read that way to me. There was definitely, like, between Zafira and Nasir, they were obviously enemies to lovers. I mean, everything was set up to have them pitted against each other from the beginning, unbeknownst to the individuals at the time. But it felt like they were just kind of, they had a common goal, and then they kind of, oh, you have the same goal, we have the same goal, let's just kind of work through this together. It didn't feel like a family. Not to say that that's a bad thing. I just don't see, not every book needs to have a found family trope.
Well, they call themselves, the word that they use, they say, like, gang, like, we're a gang, like, together, like,
right.
And then, you know, they are all of these characters. So who are all of these characters? We're talking about them. We haven't even, like, really talked about them. We have Nasir,
who is the male main character.
Yep. So he's the prince.
The Prince of Death.
The Prince of Death. The Hashashin.
The Hashashin, which is, but he's basically an assassin with a heart and is the son of the Sultan.
Yes. And then Zafira, who's the female huntress who feeds her people in her, like, caliphate. And, you know, she's awesome. She's awesome. She's awesome. We've got Dean and then her best friend, Yasmin, and then Zafira's sister and her mom and her backstory. Then we have Altair. Altair is my favorite. I've got nothing but love for the sassy best friend. I'm all about it. And in this case,
sassy
like,
best friend,
sassy half brother, like, all about it. I love it so much. Yeah.
His one-liners. Oh, I mean, that comes with the best friend territory, the sassy best friend territory. When you find out about, like, them being half brothers, and he's like, "You knew this whole time? Why didn't you tell?" He's like, "Well, he's your half brother, so, like, I told you half the truth. Like, doesn't that count?" Or when, you know, towards, like, the last quarter of the book or what have you, when Nasir and Zafira are captured, and Altair comes to save them. He's like, "Oh, I've come to save my damsel in distress," and Zafira is quick to respond, "I am not a damsel. I'm not in distress." She goes all Megara on him, and he goes, "Wasn't talking about you." And I just love that. I love the sass. I love the sass.
And the banter, like, Sultani, like, all of that is just really good. It's just good. Yeah. I loved it. Altair was my favorite. So, like, the end, you know, okay. We've got, who else is there?
Benjamin
and Benjamin.
Kifa,
and who else?
Silver Witch, Lion of the Night.
Silver Witch, Lion of the Night. Boy, oh boy.
Didn't see either of those.
Yeah.
Either of those twists.
Yeah, no, not at all. That's why I said, like, the world building on this, like, was really good, and, like, the repetition was there. So you, by the time the twists were happening, you had, like, at least some grasp of what was going on. So I read this twice. So the first time I read it, like, 2 weeks ago, and then I finished it again today. And I needed that second read through, let me tell you, because the first time I finished it and I was like, okay,
what just happened?
I feel like I know everything that happened, but I didn't get all of the, like, subtlety, you know? So this second time, I still didn't get all the subtlety because I'm dumb. But I will.
No, that'll be me with Priory. I'll be like, "Oh, I remember this. Don't remember this."
I will. I swear I will. But yeah, the Lion of the Night, all of that was really good. Shar. So okay, magic is gone. I like stories where magic is gone and the goal is magic coming back, because, you know, as soon as magic comes back, like, all shit. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, we love that. So, like, and that is what happens here, like, more or less. Like, they succeed in the end. Like, the goal, you know, they succeed. Of course, you know, there are deaths. You know, people are sad. Things are worked through. But, you know, I have to say, I think, personally, that Dean is slept on as a character. I liked Dean. I don't like friends to lovers. I will go down with that. But, like, as a character, I really liked him. And I thought that his death was so fast and like...
It was very early on. Do you feel like it was necessary to move the plot to have him killed off so early?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think that kind of conflict and that like barrier needed to be there between like Altair and Nasir and Zafira, so that, you know, there was like that tension between our like main three. But it was just so fast and like, and he was so sweet.
He was a good person. I think that's,
yeah.
You know, he was very selfless. Like, I mean, because the goal was to she was supposed to be the target, and he sacrificed himself. You know, Zafira eventually says like, which one of you killed him? But it was never about, I understand technically, yes. And they never answer it. They never answer which one. He was like, is it going to matter? Is it going to make a difference? What the outcome is? Or at least that's what I remember. But she was the target. And he sacrificed himself because he loved his best friend.
And you're right. He's just a good person. He was like, you know, I want you to marry me. And, you know, I know you won't wear a ring, so I got it on this chain. And like take it, like in my dying like moments, like take this wedding ring that you rejected because you didn't want to marry me. Like, oh my God, like how heavy. Like I really
right?
just like how heavy. That's what I'm saying. Like I really love her.
And really interesting. Well, I don't want to say interesting. To see the character development, because right before he proposes and you have like that depth of like, you know, I love you, like I know how you feel about marriage, blah, blah, blah. She already had that in-depth conversation with Yasmin on her wedding day of like, this is for you, not so much for me. And Yasmin even says, like, even tries to have that conversation with her best friend. Like, not everybody's like you, you know, like everybody wants something different. Like, this is what I want for my life.
Well, and Zafira does a really great, like line there. Talking to Dean, and she's like, you know, when all this is over, when I come back, I will marry you. Like, yes, I will. Oh. Do you remember that? Like, and then her inner monologue is like, that's a lie.
Right.
Like that's a lie. And like that.
Why am I saying, yeah. She's like, why am I saying the stuff that I don't even believe?
Yeah. Cause she doesn't even know really if she's going to come back alive. So she's just like saying all this stuff to like brush, you know, to like, kind of gloss over all of it. So she leaves, so she deal when she comes back. But like, I really like that because she admits it to herself right away. Like, liar, you're a liar. Like, you were never going to do that. And that's just another reason why I really appreciate Zafira. And of course, like you said, again, like Nasir and Zafira are set up from the beginning. Like, she is a compass. She can't get lost in darkness. And like his whole thing is like darkness, you know, it's very, you know, poetic. It's very good. It's very good.
Or like, in which, you know, that in the beginning, and then at the end when she's captured and Nasir comes after her, she's like, why did you come after me? And he goes, you're like, he couldn't even admit it to himself. And I was just like, yeah. Like, he says it in a more romantic way, but he goes, you're my compass. And I go,
It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Worth noting that all these people are hot.
So hot. I can't
So
wait to post
hot.
all the fan art.
They're
So
all
hot.
just
Nasir's fan art
gorgeous.
And it was commissioned by ARZ28. So if they have an Instagram, we'll tag that person. But it's all on the We Hunt, and we'll have everything in show notes too. WeHuntTheFlame.com has all these, they're all hot. They're all just attractive people.
Attractive people. Oh my gosh.
And I was going to say, unrelated, did you notice when they said the thing?
Oh, when they said we hunt the flame? Like, we are the...
They said it! They
said it. But, you know, it was funny because it wasn't even, like, Zafira or Nasir that said it. It was Kifa that said it. And she gave, like, such a beautiful, like
we hunt the flame.
speech.
Part of it's we hunt the flame, the light and the darkness, the good this world deserves.
Yeah, how just like I read a review that said that the writing of this book is at times lyrical and lush. And I believe that completely because there are moments in that book, just like that speech, where it's just beautiful. I remember Zafira was describing a feeling in her stomach, and I was just like, that is like poetry. Like that, oh my gosh. So what do we really not love about this book? We have to be like totally fair in our criticism. What do we not love?
Now we've been like praising it. I think it was hard for me initially, the world building. It took me, and I mean, everybody who has criticisms for Crescent City regarding the world building, I ate that shit up. I like a world building. This one was a little bit harder for me. And I do understand that I am not the target audience for this read. But just like our Legendborn episode, you don't need to be a target audience to be a good book. And what I really like, and again, we'll have a bunch of links in our show notes. The author, Hafsa, had an interview with Bustle, and she even said, by making Arawiya feel like home, that was her whole point in the world building, is to making Arawiya feel like home, to make it more accessible for non-Arab readers. And I think that's really, and that typically her writing style too is she lines up the themes, she does the world building, and she puts characters in later, which I found really interesting because usually, and I don't know many authors, except Caven and Amber. I only know 2 authors. That you usually, like, there's an idea for characters and you want to do something with them. So, or there's a balance of like, here's this plot, here's some characters, then you grow. So to hear a different style of predominantly world building first was something interesting that after reading that interview, I read that interview after I read the book, and that made sense why I felt that way in the world building.
I can see that like clearly now that you say that. You know, you got the world, I'm thinking of it like the map, and then you have all the different sections, and you know, when magic disappeared, like this is what happened, you know, this is all of that. Like I can see that. I think that's wonderful. Wow, that's really interesting. Once again, Jessica Marie does the work. Does the work. She did all of the work.
Just for you, I even found a Reddit link.
Hey. Gotta give a shout out to Reddit. Oh man, what would we do without Reddit? Probably a lot. So what do we think about the forest? I found the idea of an ever like encroaching forest to be menacing and anxiety inducing in a very like simple, like basic, like it's one of those like basic fears, right? Like the wilderness like keeps coming out to get you, and like no matter what happens, like it will swallow where you are eventually. Like that's a primal fear.
I don't know if I didn't. I don't know if I picked it up so much, only because that kind of happens in a way in Shang-Chi. And it's like getting out on once you get out on the other side, it's like, oh, it's not so bad. You know, it's kind of like a defense mechanism for the forest. So I think that's probably why, if it was quote unquote real life, absolutely, that'd be terrifying. Or even maybe because of our exposure to the From Blood and Ash series with the Blood Forest. I mean, that forest is terrifying within itself, but maybe I'm just used to being in the woods all the time.
You're desensitized. You're desensitized. You're like, yeah, it's another killer forest. Whatever.
Here's another one. Like, I'm not surprised. Even if you go back, not even with woods, even if we go as far back to talk about Wizard of Oz, and they had the attacking trees, like, we've been exposed, like you said, we've been decent. Maybe it's just a desensitization.
I don't know. I find forests to be like very pleasant and very like wonderful and like fairy-like until
very cottagecore,
very cottagecore until a certain point in the afternoon, and then it becomes like menacing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and Tuck Everlasting makes me feel that way. I don't know why. Like Tuck Everlasting is very anxiety-inducing to me, with the big tree and the spring and the woods and It's a
I
whole
always,
thing.
I'm that person who, if something wasn't happening, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, but I mean, the way you feel about the forest is how I feel about the ocean. And I think that's just knowing that feeding time for sharks is between like twilight and dawn.
Yep.
So that's terrifying to me.
Ugh. Terrifying to me is being stuck on a magical island full of monsters. As we may know, I'm scared of the ocean. So, being stuck on a magical island is pretty terrifying to me. Being stuck on a magical island with a super hot prince, better. His super hot, half brother, better. It could have been worse. Filled with ifrits, though, not cool. And the Lion of the Night, who is very scary. Very, very scary.
Yeah. Why? When I was reading him, I was trying to place what type of villain do I know? Like, who is a comparable villain, right? Like, remember when we were doing the Mortal Instruments 1 through 3, and I was saying how Valentine Morgenstern was very much like Marcus Vogel.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to pinpoint, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's just a melding of other, but I just felt like, why his tactics and his approach, maybe it's just like a villain thing, reminded me of something that we read. I really don't remember. And if anybody else has read this book and then they go, oh, please let us know in our comments to say like, oh, he kind of reminded me of this. His approach to Zafira, once he finally does capture her, when the bartering of trying to get her to help him, and she finally was like, I'll do it, just so he would stop torturing Nasir.
Don't burn him. Yeah.
It was just like, maybe it's just part of like Villain 101 that I've just gotten that I was like, oh, this is just like I don't want to say he's a typical villain, but he was scary.
Yeah, he was scary. He was very manipulative, right? Like
maybe that's the fear.
Yeah, like long game, manipulative. Similar to Valentine, in that like the longer you let him talk, the more
things he's saying kind of
makes sense.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's where the comparison is.
Yeah, maybe a little bit with Valentine. Like the more you let him go on, the more like when you start to raise your points, like you sound like the asshole. You're like, but you're not. But like the way that it's very, very much like that. I thought this whole backstory with the sisters and magic and like the prison island,
the six magical sisters,
yeah.
Right? Like the sisters, I almost in the mythology, I almost had to equate like the six sisters are essentially like six deities.
Yeah. That's how I basically read it. Yeah, like six deities, and then like 5 of them are out in the world, and like the 6th one is like the most powerful one, and like she's on the like prison island, to keep everybody in line, and then the Lion of the Night trick. Okay. This is where my chronological order is a little bit wonky. So, the White Witch, right?
Silver Witch.
The Silver Witch. Sorry, thinking of Gandalf. The Silver Witch is with the Lion of the Night, yes, and has Altair. Yes. And then she leaves and meets meets Nasir's father.
Dad. Yes.
Yeah, and falls in love and finds out what love is. She didn't
realize that, like, what real love is until she met the Sultan, right?
Yeah, and then has Nasir.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so then so we have the trope of, you want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah.
R.I.P. Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
That Zafira is seeing Nasir's scars, then, he's like taking off his clothes, and he's like, you know what that means? Just, they have their little banter. Then you later find out that he shares with her how he got the scars, which is how his father was abusing him if he didn't basically conform to whatever his father was asking him to do. And then at one point, one of the Hashashan assignments, he didn't want to complete, or he was like having some humanity about it. And the way, and Nasir even says, like, I've gotten so accustomed to the torture that his dad could like be scarring him or poking and prodding him for as long as possible. And he became kind of like desensitized. Like, he almost didn't have any nerve endings by that point, so it didn't bother him. And this whole time, one of the things, he did it for so long to his mother, how it was set up. It was like the Sultan basically tortured his mother to die. And that's why everybody blamed Nasir for his mother's death. That's all Nasir knew for most of his life, that he was responsible for his mother's death. So then, how fucked up, right?
So fucked up. And then
you come to find out, bitch never died. She fucking lied to everybody, set up her own death, like, pieced out. Then that's the reveal. That's how we find out as the reader. Did anybody see that coming? I want to know if anybody saw any of these plots coming, because I remember I paused the book. I go, what? And I was listening to the book, and then I think I told you, I was listening and I was reading, because I felt like it was harder for me to get involved into the book. So I really was just like, well, let me just do both. Maybe I'll process it better. And I stopped the book. I go, did I read? Did I hear what I think I read? Like, it was just a mess. I was a mess. And it was. I go, oh my gosh. The Silver Witch, the entire time. The Silver Witch has made an appearance since the beginning of the book, talking to Zafira. Nobody knew. I'm still just kind of rambling about my being shocked about the whole thing.
Well, it is very surprising. And like, no, I didn't see it either, but I was like, gee whiz, it's got to be something, right? Like, it has to be.
Yeah, you were just wondering where this was going.
Like, where is this going? Yeah, and then when the characters are like, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, too. So, that was really good, and that's a credit to the writing, that I was just like, what?
Did you see when the Lion of the Night captured Zafira? Did you know that was going to be Altair's father?
No, I had no idea. I figured it was going to be something. I didn't think it was going to be that.
Well, then, okay, flash forward to the epilogue. And Yasmin, who we met earlier in the book, and then she's carried throughout the book as like this, it's almost like Zafira has Yasmin as her like angel on her right shoulder kind of thing. Like, this would be if she was here, like what would Yasmin do kind of thing. And so you go into her kind of POV, and she's in like this house castle thing with her new husband, and she's enraged. She knows Dean died. Her friend's out there. Shit's going down, and she feels helpless. She's just like, what am I going to do? And he's like, and her husband's like, I know a guy. And she's like, yeah, but like, who do you know? Then you come to find out the guy I know, he's going to help us out. It's Altair. Cool. Go to the other part of the epilogue. He's going to be working against him. That's what those are the last lines that like Altair shows up, and he was like, don't worry, blah, 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 said the Lion of the Night. And I was like, oh my God, they're all in it together. I was just, oh my goodness.
Well, and again, that's a credit to the writing, but that just gets you like so pumped, right? For the next one, like so incredibly pumped. It was just amazing. I want to talk very briefly about Zafira and her grief, because I feel like grief is a theme here that every character is dealing with in their own way. Benjamin has his own thing, and then like Kifa has everything with her dad. Ugh. And everybody else, but Zafira and like what happened with her mom and dad.
Like, or both of her parents.
Both of her parents. And, like, the guilt that she feels about that, I feel like guilt is another, like, really heavy theme here. And everybody is, like, weighed down by, like, a burden of guilt. So Zafira was the learned how to be a hunter from her dad, basically. And, like, she could go into the woods, and hunt and not get lost and keep her sanity and everything. And then she gets sick, right? She gets sick, and then her sister gets sick, and her mom gets sick, and she's sick for a long time. And her dad goes out on his own into the forest and comes back crazy. And then attacks Zafira, and then Zafira's mom has to kill her husband in front of Zafira. Just like, and then her mom goes into complete and utter depression, and it's been like that for 5 years now. So, I mean, wow, heavy shit. And Zafira has not spoken to her mother in 5 years since then, and that is heavy too. So I've said it, I'll say it again. I love Zafira. I feel like the things that she has to deal with are very heavy and very, they like help kind of like build who you are as a person, and they're tragic, but it doesn't come off as like gross, like exploitative kind of tragedy. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels kind of like, okay, like, it's bad, but she's got her mom, and, like, her mom's there, like, her sister, and, like, it's not this, like, gross spectacle of tragedy, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, it was a lot of, and it sucks, but it's life, that how we grow as people in the face of adversity, or blah, blah, blah. We've all been there. Does it make it great? No. Do you wish that on other people? No, typically. But it also doesn't define her character in a way, which I can respect, that you don't let your tragedies take over, become you, or you become your tragedies. They're just a part of who you are and how you add that to your little toolbox of life.
Yeah, oof. And I feel like Zafira is also very like strong in character too, and like and other characters like Benjamin are worried about her like mental health and like how she deals with things, and like when she finds out that like she has magic, like she's a compass, right? When she finds that out, and she has like a little breakdown, like it's
well, there's a line that they even tell her. I think it's Benjamin. He goes, "You aren't broke," because she's like upset, thinking she's broken, because she now she knows kind of what she is, and it makes sense of why she is the way she is. Why was she the only person able to come back to her community and find her way back home? And they say, you aren't broken, Zafira. You've always followed the direction of your heart. It was a subconscious effort you trusted without a doubt. But now that you know what you are, you've begun to use your head instead of your heart, and that is what has left you astray, which I think is really important, because how many times do you hear the quotes like, oh, listen to your heart. I mean, they make songs about it all the time.
Listen to your heart, right? When it's calling
for you too. We don't karaoke, clearly. Maybe we'll even edit that out. But I think it's very telling that, usually you and I personally will be like, okay, shut it down, lock it down. You got to tighten up your emotional shit, because you got to keep bigger picture, and that has worked very well for us our entire lives. But in this case, that's not the case. They're like, you can't listen. Now you're thinking logical, where everything that came easy to you was because you weren't thinking too much into it. It was this natural, innate part of who you are. And now that you're thinking too much, and that's also true with anything. Think about how I remember there was, when I was studying in Spain at one point, trying to do all the conjugations of like past, present, participle, future, everything. so hard when you're sober. But if you let your guard down, and everybody even tells you, if you're learning a new language, have a couple drinks if you're trying to converse, because you will stop thinking. You will stop overthinking, and everything will just kind of flow as you let your inhibitions down of like that natural, guard to try to be perfect at something new.
And this is
Maybe
true.
Just me? No, oh.
no.
Like,
this is true. This is true. This is true. If you ever go out with us, you will hear lots of languages. So I took a screenshot on my phone when I was trying to like really get the world building down. And it says that there are 2 different like types of magic users in this world, right? There's one whose affinities pertain to the body and mind. Those are seers, healers, and miragis. And then there's Insuri, who are the firehearts, the aquifers, and the blacksmiths, wielders of light and shadow. And then Benjamin's a dreamwalker. He's telling
the dreamwalker.
Yeah,
and he hadn't dreamed in so long.
But the magic was back on Shar, so then he could. So just the little details about the world building I thought were really interesting and things like that. And you have all these variety, so you have like diversity amongst diversity, right? It's just really fantastic. And then the magic is gone, and that like other level of diversity is just like wiped out from everybody. And of course the world is different, and I will never really stop appreciating Zafira about how she in the beginning is like, I just want to feel sand under my feet, and then at the end she's like, I never ever want to be around sand. It gets everywhere. It's awful. I hate it. It's awful. I was just like, yeah, sand sucks.
I hate sand. It's
awful.
So weird, because I do appreciate the desert and the lack of humidity. We grew up in Florida. I like putting my feet in the sand? Absolutely. But please, like, I need a water station, like how sometimes you can have like the spigots right when you get off the beach, to wipe my feet off, because driving. Yes. Do you ever remember, and maybe we just did this with the kid, like with my younger siblings, we would keep bottles of water in like a jug of water from home, like from the faucet, from the sprinkler or something from home, and we would bring it in the car, so we would rinse our feet off, because in Florida, in different parts of Florida, you could drive on the beach. So even if you try to rinse them off in the ocean, you're still
the never ending battle against sand. No, I didn't do that when I was a kid, because the water would turn into like boiling, like fire liquid. So no,
just sand everywhere. I will never. I love Rowan and Aelin with all of my heart. That scene.
Not about it. Everywhere, not about it. I mean, in the ocean, okay, fine, but even then, like fish, but like, okay. We're digressing. We don't mean to be digressing. So what was your favorite part of this book?
I don't know if one part stands out. I feel like what initially was, oh my gosh, an epilogue. Like I feel like I was reading, and all of a sudden it was epilogue. And I just didn't feel like chapter 91 was the end, but the epilogue should have just been chapter 92, maybe not even considered an epilogue. I don't know. I don't know if one instance stands out to me. Not in a bad way. I just, I enjoyed the read, but there wasn't anything that like really off the top of my head right now. What about you?
And we have to understand, like, this is first book, right? We all know a fantasy first book situation. Like, it is what it is, and then the second book is always, like, boom, boom.
And we know that the second book, we know this set is a duology. Yeah. So the second book is the end. Yeah. So this just feels, I guess, more or less, this really just feels like a setup. Mm-hmm. Like, if I think of, and I try to think, if I try to think of Throne of Glass out of the 8 books, and I say that because we just started talking about Rowan and Aelin, what was my favorite part of, you know what, I take that back, because I just love Aelin as a whole. She's my favorite part, so never mind. Mm-hmm. I guess Alistair, he was my favorite till the epilogue.
Yeah.
But I just don't know where we're going with that. Like, is he a double agent? Is he we don't know. We don't know if whose team is he on? Is he trying to get information? I don't know.
Interesting. It's all very interesting. It's all very exciting. I think my favorite part has to be like from the time that everyone realized that they had to dig up the hearts. I feel like from digging up the hearts until the end is like my favorite like section of the book, and I can't really pick out like a favorite moment from that because that's when it's just like bam, 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 all the things, and like I really enjoyed that.
I liked a lot of the quotes. I feel like I highlighted a lot of quotes.
Very quotable. What do you have? What are some good ones?
I really like the ones in the beginning where it was, do you think seeing a woman won't make them rethink my every accomplishment? Because again, it's another patriarchal heavy society. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Because Yasmin's like, why don't you just tell them and show everybody who you are, who you really are, who the hunter is, or whoever it was saying that. I liked when she thought, where I can't remember who she was with, where she thought she was going off as the hunter and they called her out, okay, huntress, and she froze. I do like that when she got called out on it and she thought she was just running a good gimmick.
Oh, well, we didn't even talk about that. And that's because Hathor?
Hatham.
There's like going to be a female like ruler.
Like a female, like a sultana almost, or like of their Sassarin.
That's just like a couple paragraphs that are in there, and that's like not brought up like
ever again. So I wonder if that's kind of like
if that's dropped in there, and that'll be part of the next book. I hope so, because like women,
right? Oh, I know that there was nothing more respectable and dangerous than a woman of confidence.
Yes. And of course, we haven't talked about the representation in this book, and that is because being who we are, we cannot speak on if this is accurate representation. We can only speak on like what the story is, and to us, the story is very good. So
I can see why people were talking about it, because I really didn't know. Most of the time, I go into books blind. I didn't completely go in blind for this one because I knew this wasn't going to be written for me, so I wanted to have some sort of understanding and kind of put my mind in the right mindset of like what I was walking into, to be in that, in that frame of mind. So I knew everybody talked about it on Bookstagram, on Book Talk. People have been excited about it. I mean, even when I was pulling up the links, you have Bustle and Teen Vogue interviewing the author. I mean, those aren't, no discredit to, smaller blogger sites. But those are big names for any author to land an interview on that capacity. And they weren't small Q&As. They were, important, intensive interviews that I found really helpful reading and kind of looking back and understanding what I was reading. And when I read the interviews after, because I didn't read them during, because I didn't want to be spoiled. And the interviews, if you're considering reading this book, the interviews don't give anything away either. It's more about defining the relationships and the structure of the stories. No spoilers.
And another kind of point that I want to bring up is like Zafira starts off like masking as a man, the hunter, and all her accomplishments as a man because of the oppressive like situation that she is living in, and women aren't allowed to do certain things, and it's it's a very shitty situation. And throughout the course of the book, she takes off her hood, she takes off her cloak, she literally faints because of the oppressive weight of the cloak over her, and she has to take it off and kind of and throughout the story, there are moments where she kind of hunches into herself, and she feels like Dean's imaginary fingers on her chin, like lifting her so that she's like proud and like, making her like take up space when she was trying to like fold into herself. And that is really beautiful. And I see that on its surface level for what it means to me, but I know that for a lot of other people that means something very different, and I can't speak on that because of who I am, but it's not for me, and that's all I'm saying. But it was very beautiful just on a surface level for me as a reader, because I also feel that way. I also feel like when I'm not confident and I don't have something with me, like I shrink into myself, and it's a hard lesson to like take up space as a woman and like throw your shoulders back and like take like pride in your accomplishments. And that's what I took from it.
And I think that's nice that no matter who you are, there is something that you can take away from this book. Even though it is the first of a duology, there's still something to take away, because that setup brings us into that second book too.
And it's such a good setup for a second book. Oh my God, it's just fantastic. And it's so exciting. And the second book is out. Like, we as a podcast, like, don't have to wait. Like, I guess you as an audience has to wait a little bit, but like we as a podcast, we don't have to wait, which is very exciting. So I am very grateful that we had the opportunity to read this. I am thankful that we got to read this, and I am very excited for the next book. And as a result of that, I feel like I can't possibly be more excited for the TV show, but I bet I will be by the end of the second book.
Yeah, I feel like, and I think it'll be interesting once we read the second book, how, sometimes we have, especially since we know the rights have been secured, and we'll have the deadline article in the show notes as well, to see what our speculations of the structure might be.
Yeah. Oh, it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
So feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast, and we're both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. And if you are feeling generous, please feel free to review us on wherever platforms allow reviewing. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, and we will be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.